All right, everybody, welcome to another Tony Talks. This is an emergency Tony Talks. I have a lot of things I need to get off my chest because Ukraine, Russia, pronouns, Jeffrey Epstein, John Lou Brunel, whatever the fuck the guy's name is. A lot of stuff happening. And I want to start by talking about President Joe Biden here on President's Day because a lot of things happened. Joe Biden and Putin, they need to meet. This is the negotiation that's currently going on. If Russia doesn't invade and take over Ukraine, Biden wants to meet with Putin. They're going to come to an agreement. They're going to come to a settlement. And all I could think is, how is this meeting going to go? How is Joe Biden going to sit across the table from Vladimir Putin? He might call him Gorbachev. The guy doesn't know what decade he's in. Democrats, look, I'm not a Republican, but Democrats, you had one job to pick the right candidate that you wanted to beat Donald Trump. And you had the candidate. You had the person. The person was Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard was the primary candidate that should have got the nomination to take on Trump in the general election. If you voted for Biden and you're a Democrat in the general election, I give you a fucking pass. But all you people that voted for Joe Biden in the primaries, this is mostly on you. This is on you because we got this old senile white guy trying to prevent World War III across the table from Gorbachev in his mind. Okay, this is the problem. A lot of people didn't like Trump because he didn't know how to be a president. Okay, so now we went from one guy that didn't know how to be a president to another guy who doesn't know that he actually is the president. So this is on the Democrat registered voters that voted for Joe Biden in the primary because almost any other candidate, including Bernie freaking Sanders, would have been a better president than Joe Biden. Okay, you had a person who was a woman of color, a veteran, well-spoken. She looks phenomenal. She debated amazingly. She's the one that took Kamala Harris out of the running to be the Democratic nominee when she talked about her record as an attorney general and how she's responsible for putting more people of color in prison than anybody else in the history of the California, and the history of California. Tulsi Gabbard did that to Kamala Harris. So not only did you people get behind an old senile white guy, which is the exact thing you guys have been lobbying against for the last 4 years because of Trump and all the white people that were in his administration. So you picked more of the same, the person that is the most more of the same out of everybody that was in the Democratic field, with Joe Biden, the most establishment candidate, the one that's the most corrupted, and he is the swamp. The guy is the freaking swamp, and he can't speak. He can't speak. He cannot speak. And it's up to him to sit across the table from Putin and decide how we're going to how we're going to come to an agreement with Ukraine and everything. Putin could run over this guy. And it's a shame, but happy President's Day. I hope everybody's doing well. This is Tony Talks, and we are lobbying for Tulsi Gabbard to run again in 2024 alongside Dan Crenshaw. Give us a third party run. And this is how you know if you have a good candidate. If you have a good candidate, you should support the candidate. You have a bunch of establishment candidates that have been around for a while, getting pushes and everything from the media, and then you have an outsider who may have been in the political field, but doesn't necessarily get along with everybody in the party, who will vote no when others vote yes, will vote yes when others vote no, and then gets ostracized by the media, the mainstream media outlets that represent that party. You know how I know this? Look at Ron Paul in 2012. Ron Paul was the person, they called him Dr. No. He's an OBGYN. He's been a doctor for years. He delivered over 4,000 babies. God bless him. Best politician of my lifetime. And the media never took him on as a serious candidate. They came up with stupid questions like, are you electable? I haven't heard a lot of electability. What's the term I'm looking for? A lot of people putting that electability label on somebody as if to say they're not electable. They did it, but they did it with Ron Paul. And to me, it was the most asinine statement you could have about somebody running for office. If people vote for the person, they're electable. Ron Paul won elections in Congress. Ron Paul was electable for numerous terms, and all it takes to be electable is people voting for you. It's not the media. They constantly create this image about people being credible enough to be the president when it's not. That's not up to them to do. This is the constant problem we have with the media. They're showing us what to think about. They're mirroring, giving us perspectives based on whatever agendas that they have. And then you wonder why people are going to Joe Rogan for a fucking fair and balanced understanding of what's going on in the world. And then CNN's like, why do people go to Joe Rogan? Because we're not dumb enough to stick by your agenda. People are they're too smart now. There may have been a time in history where you could have pigeonholed people's perspectives into a point where we couldn't know better. But now we have the internet. We have all these things. We could just go online and find. And then even that's getting cracked down now. And it's a crazy thing what's happening in society with all this stuff. And I'm going to get to that more in a little bit, about social credit and things like that, because what's going on in Canada is insane. The emergency act, the emergency powers that Trudeau has put on his citizens, freezing bank accounts, but whatever. I'm going to get to that in a little bit, but I'm going to talk about, Jeffrey Epstein, John Lou Brunel, whatever the guy's name is. Both people, well, Epstein obviously is old news, but Brunel dead in his jail cell, no cameras, killed himself. This is like if this script was written in a movie, that we're gonna have this guy. Listen, let's talk about this for a second. You have Jeffrey Epstein. He has an island where there are manifests of people flying with this guy that are in great positions of power. I think Prince Andrew just made a settlement with one of the Epstein victims. Incredibly high profile individuals. This is the fucking movie with Nicole Kidman and Al Pacino, and then they go into the room and it's all this sick shit happening. I'm not good with movies. I can't fucking think of it. But this is a pedophile island. Nobody's been convicted of anything. Where he had an island where he took rich and powerful people, rich and powerful people flew to this island where there were underage girls. And you had people like Bill Clinton, Trump was on a flight manifest with Epstein, and all these high authoritative figures. Prince Andrew just made a fucking settlement from all around the world going to this island. Actors, the top influencers of every industry that they were in. Nothing concrete has come out of this. There's been no justice for any of it. There's been no transparency as to what exactly was going on the island, why it was happening. You had Epstein kill himself with nobody around. The guards didn't. This script would have been thrown away in Hollywood because it's too unbelievable. They say people aren't going to buy it. It's too dumb. Then you get Epstein's number 2, Ghislaine Maxwell. You get no real depth of what was actually happening in that trial. It's a total whitewash. You get Jeffrey Epstein's other top affiliate, this Brunel dude. You get him, you capture him, then he kills himself. So there's no leads anymore. This was a pedophile island where the top people in their fields in the world that influenced everything would go. And there has been no transparency. There's been no justice for any of the underage individuals that were on that island. It sounds like it's a fictional novel of some kind. And just let that sink for a second. The three people that were involved with this, that we brought to the justice system, two of them killed themselves. One of them had it was the trial was all about how Epstein, they made it seem like Epstein was this lone sick person, and they made it seem like Maxwell just saw things and she was like the recruiter or whatever. But what about everybody else? What about what was going on in the island? What about, were there videotapes? Was there any type of, there had to be some type of documentation? What really happened? I'm waiting for, a lot of people are sharing this story on social media now. I'm waiting for CNN to do a fact check on Brunel and Epstein and the jail cell and the no cameras and the hanging and whatever, and to say to, oh, this claim is misleading or mostly false for whatever reason that they come up with, because we're too stupid to, in their mind, to fucking see the real reality. But whatever. That's like real shit that's going on, that like happened. This is like something that we should know about. We should know about, but people want to argue over what fucking pronouns they want to be called by. People want to argue over how they identify, how they feel if somebody says something. Whatever happened to sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Sticks and stones they might not even break your bones. They may break your bones. They may hurt you if you get hit with something physically, but words will never hurt you. Whatever happened to that? Now people want to be buried and to stay isolated because they get called by the wrong pronoun or they just feel a certain way. They feel like just like hurt and whatever. And there's things that cross the line where people need to take a step, but if it's every single thing and your identity is based around getting insulted, and your identity is based around wanting to put people down because they don't use the right words, you need to get a hobby. You need to get a friend. You got these people that are more concerned about being identified in the right way than a bunch of pedophiles going to an island with global leaders of all types of political persuasion. It's not like it's left or right. It's bipartisan support at fucking Epstein's island. So, I don't give a fuck. I'll call you fucking Zoltan if you want me to. It doesn't matter to me. And if you want to be a man, woman, girl, boy, whatever, black, white, we've been beaten to death over gender being a social construct, but they won't ever talk about race being a social construct, because gender is something they could separate us by, and race is something that if it's more advertised as a social construct, that'll just bring people together. So that wants to get ignored because people evolved differently based on where their ancestors came from and whatever climates they were. And now we've created races to divide us. But let's talk about pronouns. Let's talk about genders, because this is all control. This is like controlled. It's not even like this used to be conspiracy stuff. This is stuff that if you talked about 10 years ago, I should know this, because the 19-year-old me had more balls than the 32-year-old me for sure. And all these people that are arguably on the front lines of their causes today. And we're talking about losing freedoms, not even losing freedom, giving them away. And what's crazy is every time a new child is born, if there's a new child born in the world today, this is however they're living, this is their normal. However they're living, this is what they're just going to be accepting on. I'm fucking that phrase up here. It's not a phrase anyway. It's more of a thought. But like if you're born into society, however you grow to learn society, that's all you know. So if you keep losing a little bit of freedom and a little bit of freedom and a little bit of freedom, and it's just going to keep getting rolled over to generation to generation to generation, sooner or later, people that are older in their 70s, in their 80s, the societies that they knew that had so much freedom from when they were younger and as they got older will look completely different. It'll be a completely different society. We're getting closer and closer to a social credit society. This is what I was alluding to earlier. I mean, look at Canada's freezing bank assets. If you they did it to a single mother. A dude in the United States donated $40 to the Freedom Convoy, the truckers in Canada, and he had media outlets contacting him after the list was hacked to get found and then published. So there's no protection of that freedom. There's no protection of freedom really anymore. That's what this whole COVID thing is about. You have, and there's this, you think about things or you don't think about things. Like you have a seatbelt and you're the only person that could get affected by you wearing a seatbelt or not wearing a seatbelt. So it's a law. So you could get pulled over, given a ticket for not having a seatbelt on. So next we have beeps that go off in our car if we're not wearing a seatbelt. So boom, we just have to put it on. We have to put the seatbelt on. We don't think about it anymore. Now we just go in the car and we just click it in because we know the beeps are coming, let alone the ticket that we can get from it. And there's a fallacy in philosophy and logical arguments called the slippery slope fallacy, saying that you can't use that in an argument because I forgot why. I was a philosophy fucking major, but should tell you all you need to know, really. But that's exactly what happens with these things. And then you have like the Patriot Act. Then you have you just become more and more okay with giving up your freedoms to the point where it's unrecognizable where the line ever started with how many freedoms that you actually had, which doesn't even make sense, but that's how it is, because freedoms aren't meant to be taken away. That's what freedoms are. Freedoms are freedoms. That's what the Bill of Rights is. That's what rights are. I have rights. Rights are inherent from when you're born. Rights are inherent. They're not given to you. They're not granted to you by the government. They're granted to you by just living. You don't have to say God. Some people want to say God. That's fine. But when you have the government more and more involved in your life to the point where, I mean, this is fucking Canada. This isn't like a crazy country and these are legitimately peaceful protesters that aren't causing any violence, that are just not on board. These people they drive, they're by themselves all day and they don't want to get vaccinated. They're not doing anything to harm anyone. They're making a statement because the whole world is moving on past COVID. It's 2022 now. We're 2 years into 15 days to stop the spread. And now you want to come down with the harshest sanctions or the harshest mandates or the harshest policies or the most freedom draining laws that you can come up with. And all this stuff kind of ties in together because, oftentimes it's said, what can we do about anything? What can we really do about it? You're one person, I'm one person. Fine. We can't do anything about it. But look at what these truckers are doing. These truckers aren't acting like individuals. These truckers have a common cause, a common belief. So they're acting as one, but as a whole, also acting as one. They're binded together. So when we see things like Jeffrey Epstein, John Lou Brunel, and we let it just go past, let it roll through the news cycle, and it doesn't get any attention. It gets hardly any fucking attention because instead they want to talk about Joe Rogan and why he has higher ratings than them. We can easily, really easily, command more from our rulers if we stop acting like individuals and we start acting as one. But then we create arguments about pronouns. Then we see a graph about racial inequities. And that's just all stuff that needs to be addressed. But it's also stuff that's going to be used to divide people. It's also stuff that's going to be used to say, hey, you and your neighbor are not alike. You want to be called, you want to be called Z whatever, like, you want to be, you want to be something that he's not. This is a cis white male. He's privileged, whatever. When really, it's me and that person that's being told that they're not like me, that have more in common, that if we bind it together, that's what'll scare the shit out of the rulers of the society. Because they want to divide us and have us disillusioned that it's them against me, or we're not on the same team at all, regardless of political parties. You could be on the same team, but have different political parties, being different political parties. But it's when people like that have these differences that on the surface, they mean something. But when people like that have those surface differences come together, that's when we could really make progress in society. That's when we could really demand justice for people that were victims on a pedophile island where the world leaders went and took advantage of underage girls and traumatized people and ruined people's lives. And then we could find out who really went there, what they did there, and bring them to justice. And then we could start shaping society the same way the truckers are acting as one. We all need to start acting as one. We all need to be bound together. Because the more we act like we're different, the less that's what it just comes down to. It's that scene. It's a stupid movie. I think it's Ants or it's A Bug's Life or something, where all the little insects are like, one of them gets on a podium and he's like, if they, or no, there was one of the rulers, one of the kings of the fucking thing was like, if they ever knew how many of them there were, we would be defeated or whatever. And we don't need to defeat anybody. Doesn't need to be anything crazy, but the power in numbers that is there, that we're being told isn't there, that we're just being divided and splintered off into fucking these shallow beliefs, these things that really don't go much further than the surface level. the difference will the change in society will happen when we all are able to see past all that shit. We're all able to respect one another, regardless if you want to be whatever the fuck you want to be. The world would be a lot better place if people just simply learn to respect one another, respect your differences, appreciate your differences, learn about your differences, learn about where people came from, learn about how people grew up. Some people are just going to be assholes no matter what. Some people are just going to be racist no matter what. I think those people need to be like sent on an island somewhere, and like, you know, then we could start using our nuclear weapons. They shouldn't exist anymore. They're dumb. No, I mean, legitimately, like, but how are you going to get to a point where, and they say they want to end this stuff, how are you going to get it to a point where we could actually end it if you just keep fucking reinforcing it every day in our faces? And then we all get poorer. Inflation's affecting everybody. It's fucking, it's the highest it's been in I don't know how many years, like 30 years or something. How do we, the only way it could happen is just reaching across the aisle and understanding where people come from and respecting differences. That just respect is such a powerful thing. But instead, you got grown people that are going to start living in Disney communities. You have Disney building communities where educated people with brains are going to want to live there. It's bad enough if you're a grown adult with or a grown couple without children and you're going to Disney on vacation. It's just you and your significant other. I'm a bald head for everybody. It's bad enough if you do that, let alone you want to live in a fucking fake fairyland with castles or whatever, however it's going to be. I remember I was talking to someone one time, and this was this was like years ago. We were dating or whatever, and she was like, I want to go to Disney. I want to go to Disney. I was like, what the fuck are we gonna go to Disney for? We don't have children. It's for kids. It's a place for children. I went to Disney when I was a child. I don't fucking even remember it. I don't even know if we have any pictures from the thing. But you know, that's when you're supposed to go. And you're supposed to go when you're young enough that you're not going to remember it when you get older until you go back with your own kids or whatever. That's what Disney is. But instead, across the country, there's going to be Disney communities building. And this just goes back to this, all this shit kind of ties in together with the influencing and the commercialism. And it's now they're going to create communities that are fucking, and you won't be able to own anything there, I'm sure. It'll just be rental only communities. And you'll be able to fucking, I don't know, have a Mickey Mouse doorknob or fucking thing on the door or whatever it's called. And there'll probably be couples that have like the Mickey Mouse spot and the Minnie Mouse spot, or the Mickey and the Mickey, or Goofy. Fucking, they'll have be an Avengers section of the town. Everybody like, I want to be, I got Captain America house. Look, I'm in the Iron Man section. Iron Man. There's no Hawkeye spots left, but we got Scarlet Witch. It's so nice. And it'll be overpriced and whatever. But there are grown people that will be living in these communities that aren't even embarrassed for what they're doing. I mean, if you go to, I mean, yeah. It's just more and more stuff that just has a greater and greater influences over us until we are like completely on the teat of the corporate influencers and the government, because they don't want us to own shit anymore. We're just gonna get fucked. Yeah, so that's pretty much everything I have for everybody on this one. I had to get these thoughts out because I was very frustrated when I'm just imagining Joe Biden talking to Gorbachev because that's who he's gonna be talking to instead. He's gonna be like tear down the wall. Putin's gonna be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You got him and Kamala Harris that are in charge of this shit. Kamala. When you had there's good candidates. The best one was Tulsi Gabbard. But those that voted in the primary, you all gave us Biden. It was pretty, it felt like Trump was going to lose no matter who won. Republicans next time, they probably going to want to give us Trump. I'd rather have DeSantis. I'd really rather have Dan Crenshaw. I really, really would rather have Dan Crenshaw with Tulsi Gabbard. What can third parties do though? They can't do anything, but they can if we all come together and we just decide, hey, this is who we're supporting because we're done, we're tired, we're fed up with the left versus the right. Instead, we're all going to meet in the middle. We're going to take a Republican, we're going to take a Democrat. They have different views, they have different beliefs, but let's be pragmatic about it. These are the two most trusted politicians in America that can handle these problems. That's it. Tony Talks Comedy, Instagram, TikTok. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in.